Welcome to another interesting episode of DLife.in podcast series. I'm your host, Keyuri Jobanputra, Metabolic Health Coach. DLife.in is India's biggest, oldest, and the only award-winning low-carb platform founded in 2014 by Anup Singh, an engineer, a silver medalist from IIT Roorkee, and a 14-year pill-free diabetic. In 2011, it was Anup who pioneered the path-breaking template of 100-gram carbs per day for Indians on a vegetarian diet that subsequently helped thousands of Indian diabetics find remission. D-Life is the single biggest Indian low-carb platform in the world with 3,000 plus combined success stories, 2,000 plus original low-carb keto recipes, 150 plus podcasts, and more. The D-Life Diploma Course in Low Carb Nutrition and Metabolic Health is India's only legally tenable course. We are now the only one from India to also be CPDSO UK accredited with the global biggest 60 hours credit to our diploma course, and the only ones from India again to be the SMHP approved CMHE provider. Anup Singh, along with Shashikant Iyengar, was also the co-organizer of the two global metabolic health conferences held from India in 2013 and 2023 and 2024, which were historic events in the global low-carb space. In today's podcast, I welcome Harshil. Harshil is a finance professional who has studied nutrition and is doing some ongoing biochemistry research for metabolic syndrome and cancer as his passion. Harshil is a proud member of D-Life community where he has done his diploma in low carb. He is also sport nutritionist from Nutrition Network South Africa and completed his functional nutrition certification. He has founded the Nutrition Lab, which is focused on research evidence-based nutrition and specializes in sports nutrition and metabolic disorders like diabetes, hypertension, dyslipidemia, and cancer. Welcome, Harshil, to the podcast.
Thanks, Keyuri.
So today we are going to present a few case studies related to this topic. So we are looking forward for these interesting case studies. So over to you.
Thanks, Keyuri, for the kind introduction. So the idea behind these case studies is to generally make everyone aware on what is the power of low carb nutrition on metabolic health, especially in a case like diabetes, and in general you're seeing a lot of diabetes cases in India. You're seeing that people have a lot of dyslipidemia. By meaning dyslipidemia, I mean that cholesterol, triglycerides, etc. So when your lipid profile is deranged, meaning it is outside the normal range, even within what is mentioned in the report, so that's called something as dyslipidemia. So what should one do, and how adopting a low carb nutrition based approach solves for most of the diseases on the metabolic side. And so I want to present these case studies, make the audience aware of the power of low carb nutrition, of how these things resolve it immediately without any medicine. Of course, medicine works very well, in very trauma cases, or in emergency cases. But a nutrition based approach will help put things in remission very immediately. And if somebody is being able to use nutrition as an approach to solve the diseases, it's always best to solve it through nutrition. And if it's not being solved through nutrition, or somebody is not being able to do things, then of course the second step is to go to medicine. Of course, one would want to adopt a nutrition based approach. So that's the idea. So I'll just without taking further time, I'll just share my presentation that I made on these two case studies. Just let me know if you can see the presentation.
Yes, we can.
Yeah. Just 1 second. Yeah. So these are two case studies, especially on oral metabolic health, diabetes remission. The first case study that I wanted to share is just a recent one. A 39-year-old male came to me. He's weighing in 808 kgs. Referred to me, by his wife. His wife knows me. So the issue was that, he went for medical tests and he failed the stress test. So, in a stress test, it came that, he could not reach the target heart rate and there was inducible ischemia. Inducible ischemia means that it's possible that he can have a myocardial infarction or a heart attack, if he puts himself into a lot of stress at the current state. Given that the parameters that I've set over here, his fasting blood sugar was 207, his PPBS, which is the postprandial or the post lunch blood sugar, was 323. HbA1c was 9. Just to let the audience know, if fasting blood sugar below 100 is considered to be in a normal range. PPBS below 140 is considered to be in a normal range for a non-diabetic person. Of course, optimal ranges are much lower. And HbA1c of below 5.4 is a non-diabetic as per the definition currently. ESR is 21. ESR is the erythrocyte sedimentation rate, which indicates inflammation in your blood markers. So if your inflammation is high, in general, the body finds it very difficult to bring down your blood sugars because the action of insulin becomes blunted. His triglyceride to HDL ratio was 5 plus. Notably, triglyceride to HDL ratio is another marker of metabolic health. Anything about 2.5 means that, you are not having proper metabolic health and you need to reverse the course of direction in your lifestyle or, to adjust things overall. His urine glucose was positive. Just to note that, when your urine glucose is positive, it's the body is saying that, it's too much for me to handle and, it's releasing it. So, of course, medicines also enable this release, but this person was without medicine. So his urine glucose became positive. And of course, the stress test one, which I told you. So it's a very classic case. He was referred for an angiography and over there by the doctor. This person did not have time and, he wanted to take some time before he goes because it was a shocker for him that he had such high blood sugar and a lot of his markers were deranged. He might have had to go for angioplasty. So, of course, the first line of recommendation was to go for angiography for him. But given that he didn't have the time, he wanted to, bring his sugars. And of course, doctors also advise that he should bring his blood sugars within control and only then go for such a procedure because the efficacy of such procedures improves any operation, any procedure if the blood sugars are uncontrolled. If you go, see analysis, of course, he has severe diabetes. I've not put down the micronutrients, but again, vitamin D was very low. Homocysteine was elevated. Homocysteine is typical B6, B9, B12 deficiency, which needs to get corrected. Elevated homocysteine means that your methylation process is defective. It also impacts your energy levels and many other processes in the body. And it's also a heart attack or a cardiac risk marker as told by doctors. We've seen many articles recently coming out that, higher homocysteine is linked to the sudden heart attacks that we see in people. Of course, inflammation, given that his ESR was high, ESR being an old marker, we didn't have the HSCRP, but his ESR was high. And of course, when I took down his diet, he used to have a lot of chips. He was working in a job profile which involved him to have food at regular intervals. So, that was a bigger issue. And then, overall consumption of seed oils, and a lot of these chivdas and these snacks, etc., was what he was having. And the macro was tilted very sharply towards higher carbohydrates and the processed foods. So, the program was very simple, as we all know that, and Keyuri just said that D-Life advocates and, Anup's found out, placed a program of LCH of less than 100 grams. But given that this guy was at a higher cardiac risk, he wanted to bring his blood sugars very fastly lower. So you can adjust the kind of carbohydrates per day that you want to give to people. So, I kept him on a LCHF protocol of less than 50 grams a day. Something like, closer to kind of a ketogenic diet. Improved his electrolyte balance. Of course, for shifting him from year to year, because, if someone's having so much of carbohydrate in a day, bringing him down to 50 grams is a task. So it took maybe some days for him, but, he adjusted really well. Credit to the case over here. Credit to him for being able to do it. He changed the consumption to healthier oil from seed oils. Most of his consumption was seed oil based, so we changed that. Supplementation with micronutrients, especially solving for his vitamin D and homocysteine, and added some omega-3 for him. So of course, this is just a snapshot of the plan that we gave him. So if you just look at the results, this is the test day. The test day, as we saw, his fasting blood sugar was 207, which is over here. And on day 18, these are the fasting blood sugar came down to 100. This is the power of low carb. Without any medicine for sugar control, just on a pure low carb, he could maintain this diet. I just needed to educate him for 3-4 days, and he just was following it to the T. Of course, we saw one small spike on day 12, but that was also like not too much compared to where he was. And then straight down, we took him down till 100, and he's been able to maintain this in that 100-110 range as we speak. So we would be today maybe at about day 32. So this is at even at day 18, we could bring his fasting blood sugar under control. This is his PPBS, which is the postprandial blood sugar levels at 323. Let's like even more than double of what is the optimal being 140. On day 29, which is about a couple of days back, his PPBS, we could bring it down to below 100. So that's again the power of low carb for you guys. If you keep a stricter control on what you are eating, and maybe to put it in better words, if you change your lifestyle, modify it, you can see the results for yourself if somebody is suffering from any of these diseases. And lastly, of course, his hypertension. Most of the diabetics, in generally, you will see that have a combined hypertension problem with them. This person, of course, had that because his ECG also showed a elevated hypertension. At that time, his hypertension, of course, even higher. When we started, it was 140/92. I think in the ECG, if I remember correctly, it was about 150/96. In 30 days, this is yesterday's reading, 129/76. That's a very normal hypertension. So his hypertension is controlled, his sugars are controlled, lost 4 to 5 kgs, increased energy, and maybe after some time he'll repeat the test and the doctors will decide whether he needs to go for angiography, angioplasty. But even from his perspective, he's feeling much better on whatever he's followed. We could bring the sugars down in control, so bringing him out of the risk zone and maybe to a little safer zone from where the person was, and just took about 18 days, 20 days for things to normalize. So this is the power of low carb, which I wanted people to understand.
So yeah, the results are pretty impressive, that too, like, without even in such a short span of time. I would say that, 18 to 30 days is such a short span, and just based on the diet, such a huge improvement in these markers is really impressive. So is there any what is the science-backed evidence behind this? Like, because low carb basically has connection with insulin, but how is that correcting the hypertension part of it? Can you please explain that?
Sure. So, I just made this slide, it's really nice, I think I've explained it earlier also, and many times I mentioned it that, insulin is very, very closely linked to hypertension. So when you have insulin resistance, that's when you are metabolically affected, when you have diabetes, type 2 diabetes, especially, is called hyperinsulinemia, means that your insulin levels are elevated, you have insulin resistance. It leads to your sympathetic nervous system activation and activates some system called as the RAS, RAAS, renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system. It leads to vasoconstriction, it has free radical generation, all of this, overstimulates your central cardioregulatory pathways and leads to hypertension. That is the first point. The second point is that insulin is closely linked to sodium retention. So if your diet is very excessive in carbohydrates, you are having insulin resistance. If your insulin levels are elevated, you will have some kind of water retention, because your body doesn't allow the sodium to retain. So the signal to the kidneys to let sodium go away is kind of imbalanced, and you'll have sodium retention in the body. Which is why when a person goes on low carb, or follows a proper cleaner diet approach or a cleaner lifestyle, in a couple of days he feels the urge to go a lot of times to urinate. And that is when your body is saying that, those pathways are relaxed and your, fluid free flow is going through, and your sodium retention kind of reverses at that point in time. Of course, then you need to balance your salt intake, etc. That's for a more detailed approach, but then this is the mechanism or the scientific evidence behind all of this. And I've just listed down some papers that I really liked, while reading them, on what is linked and how is insulin resistance linked with hypertension and anemia. And I've just listed them down. You can just do a Google and you'll be able to find it. The latest one, which I find really good, is insulin resistance is cheerfully hitched with hyperinsulinemia. It's published in the journal Life in the year 2022. It's available freely on NCBI PubMed. One can just go through it and very detailed explanation of how these interplay of insulin and insulin resistance and basically hypertension is closely related. So these are some papers that one can go through to also go through the scientific evidence of what we've mentioned.
Yeah, this is interesting. The funny part is that, the general understanding is to blame sodium intake, right? Whenever somebody is suffering through this hypertension problem, nobody thinks about sugar. Everybody is blaming the sodium, and people start reducing their salt intake, but continue to consume the sugars. And any comments on that? What is your experience like? Does your client get shocked when they are told to lower the sugar instead of salt?
Yeah, many times we hear that, I think that's the opposite of what we've heard, and we need to tell them it's the sugar, stupid, the sugar causes all of this because your carbs or your sugar basically lead to these sodium retention in the body, and, of course, it's related to your hypertension. So many cases that we've seen, just get reversed by, controlling the carbohydrates, and you just see the effects in a couple of days, as you've seen over here. So yeah, it's all about proper counseling. You need present the proper evidence, and if you're well read with all these things, and you can present the evidence to them, I think it's very easy for them. And once they know, once they become aware, and when they follow, they continue to thank you till they see the results.
Okay, that's really interesting. Also, like, can you also give us some understanding about the triglycerides and how they are linked with the your like low carb diet?
Yeah. So of course, you now covered your blood sugars. We've covered kind of hypertension. So let's now maybe touch base through triglycerides, as you said, and cholesterol, because a lot of myths surrounding that, the topic. So I've put down a case. This one case is he was a very good friend of mine. He's a very good friend of mine. He's 43-year-old male. When he came to very fit and active, his fasting insulin, when he saw me was 11. When he just started discussing his case with me, his triglyceride to HDL ratio was 8. Very fit, meaning his BMI was perfect, everything was perfect. Just, the triglyceride HDL ratio used to be elevated. Of course, his micronutrient profile was also not properly in place. He was proposed statins by his doctor, and he had a nutritionist who was his relative, and he had a high history of triglycerides since 4 to 5 years. So he's very worried, and he's like, yaar, main kya karu? I don't know. So I told him that, give me 15 days time. I will make you reach one of the lowest levels of your triglycerides in your lifetime. And then if you feel okay, then you follow what I'm saying. And then he was all game for it. And he said that, okay, I give you 15 days. But before, we discuss what happened in that 15 days, maybe let's understand what triglycerides are. Triglycerides is a type of fat found in your blood. So it doesn't mean, let me repeat, that you eat fat, it goes in your blood and it floats around. Okay, that's point number one. So they are the most common type in the fat in the body. They are formed when we are consuming more calories than what your body needs immediately. Immediately is the exact time. So if you eat lots in the morning, if you exercise in the evening, if you're not using it immediately also, that means that your excess calories gets converted to triglycerides and stored in fat cells throughout your body. So that's the basic definition. So whenever you see excess triglycerides, what should come to you in your mind is that you are consuming excess calories. Let me also remind the audience that calories is a physics concept. And when you put it into the body, it is biology. So you cannot combine physics with biology. There is an interplay of hormones, which also one needs to understand. So if you are insulin resistant, you are increasing your calories, your body finds it difficult to put it in the fat cells. That also leads to excess triglycerides. Now, when we are consuming excess calories immediately, so what happens is when you consume carbohydrates, there is an immediate spike because your body is being able to break it down into glucose, which is used for energy very easily. That's the macro which gets broken down easily. And then excess glucose is converted into triglycerides. And as I said, that when you are putting things into play in a body, it is biology combined with the physics concept. It gets even more accelerated for a person who is insulin resistant because insulin as a hormone comes into play. So what we are saying is reduce your carbohydrate intake, especially the refined carbohydrates, which spike your sugar, which helps people lower triglyceride levels. So that's the science between triglycerides. Second point was on cholesterol. I find it very intriguing. People still feel that you eat fat, you find cholesterol in the body, and cholesterol is harmful. But let me remind that cholesterol is not harmful to the body at all points in time. Cholesterol plays a very crucial role in the body. If cholesterol was not there, maybe you will die because it serves as a structural and vital component of all cell membranes and as a precursor for the synthesis of steroid hormones, bile acids, vitamin D. So it is a precursor to vitamin D activation in the body also. And when you are, and the important part, the first line that I miss, is that the liver produces 75% of the cholesterol found in the body, 25% is diet. And if you increase in the diet, the liver reduces. So it is a kind of a balance maintained in the body. So it's not the cholesterol that you eat forms cholesterol, but there is some root cause. If the cholesterol, triglycerides, etc. are elevated, and you need to address the root cause and not maybe do something which inhibits the production of cholesterol in the body. So, what we are saying over here, high carbohydrate intake, especially from refined sources like white bread, pasta, excess rice, flour intake in our diet or sugary snacks, it will lead to unfavorable changes in your lipid profile, which can lead to an increase in your LDL cholesterol. So let's not feel that eating fats causes cholesterol. We've played out, I've tried to keep it simple and say that higher carbohydrates also leads to a higher cholesterol level, and as we see earlier, is a higher carbohydrate intake leads to higher triglycerides. Coming back to the case of what I did for my friend at the point in time, he had no snacking, no junk. I did a lot of strength training for him 3 to 4 days a week to build muscle. Once you build muscles are very good for metabolic health. They also store glucose very easily. So if you are consuming even a little bit excess calories, they are being able to take that in, soak that in, so they provide that kind of a buffer to your body. Improved his micronutrient profile of what we saw, anti-inflammatory and omega-3 supplementation and a LCHF protocol. He could not do 100 grams, so I put him 100, 150 grams. He was very fit. He did not have diabetes. His HbA1c was 5. So, and we changed his consumption to healthier oil from seed oils and a proper counseling of why we are putting it. He was, he could understand a lot of medical concepts. His family background was that. So just putting him that in. I'm sharing the WhatsApp that I shared to him in 15 days. If you look at 7.8 baseline, in 15 days, we changed his triglyceride to HDL ratio to 7.8 to 5.4. Of course, that was not in the normal range, but he saw one of the best triglycerides. His triglycerides was never below 200. He saw his triglycerides were at 176. So, again, this shows that, just a 15-day intervention and, you can see your life best or maybe your 10-year best triglyceride that you would have seen from earlier. So, there was improvement over there and, he got motivated. He's worked really hard and, he didn't want to do any test intermittently. And he did his test just recently and he shared it with me. His triglyceride HDL ratio is 1.1 after 9 months of proper strength training and nutrition. And that's like very, 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 very optimal. And that's the power of low carb for people. So, from 7.8 to 1.1, being metabolically fit. So, this is, the power of low carb, and power of nutrition. And if you do things rightly and put it in the equation, you might not want to start taking medicine, but, you uh, can empower yourself by doing the right things for your lifestyle and change your metabolic health.
This is great. Especially even I have seen that, especially vegetarians, when they are put on the low carb diet, so basically they have to eat things like paneer and, paneer and full fat hunker. So they are so scared because it also comes with a lot of fat. And when they are already having a high cholesterol, this is a biggest challenge to explain to them that, cholesterol is not a problem. So, what is your experience with vegetarian clients? Like, how do you convince them that, okay, this is not going to harm them?
Yeah. So just yesterday I saw one case, interestingly, I said the same thing to her, and then she like, oh, wow, are you allowing me to have this? So I'm like, yeah, sure, because, she was not allowed in the earlier protocol. I'm saying, yeah, you can have this. That's not a problem. So that's one piece. And of course, you tell them the evidence, if you explain them the right way, people understand, people will do it. In general, uh, parlance, biology is very less explained to people of how these things interplay and work, and these are very common and logical points. And if we do it, if people understand it the right way, and you put across their point, then people understand. And of course, for vegetarians, it just becomes a little difficult, but it's just about making it a lifestyle, not a diet, right? We're not doing things as are out of compulsion on us. It's our choice. Just make it our choice. Just counsel them the right way, that it's your choice and you need to empower yourself. And then they keep on going on that path, because if you just put it as your lifestyle, then you will not go it that way. Otherwise, you'll have cravings, urges, or I wanted to have this, I cheated. Those wrong connotations come through. So if you just fix that connotations also, I think clients do really well. So yeah, I think it's just about explaining the right way, and tell people that not to fear fats, because healthy fats are very helpful, and it's a very essential macronutrient for our body.
Great. Just to add, like, one of my clients, she had cravings. So I asked her to eat cheese instead of sugar. She was happy. She was scared, but then once she got good results, she said, I'm happy with cheese instead of sugar.
And I'm sure you would have also noticed, Keyuri, that if you tell your clients to switch to fats and to go lower carb, they don't have cravings. Your cravings just go away because your insulin is balanced throughout the day. It's your hormones which keep balance. They don't lead you into any ups and downs in your blood sugars, or your insulin levels are not going yo-yo through the day. So if you keep it balanced through the day, you don't have absolutely zero cravings. If you put even a chocolate in front of a person who is well balanced on his diet, he or she will not touch it, if he knows that it's his lifestyle or like this. Of course, there are various healthier versions of chocolate which are available. I was talking that, it's a very sweet craving. If something is put in front of someone, then, they will not go for it. So it's just about advocating it the right way, and then people take it in the right spirit, and things go well.
Yeah, that's true. So yeah, it's interesting case study. Let's open up for any questions that audience might have. So yeah, you guys can unmute and ask question, or you can also type in the comment box any questions related to the case studies, or in general, if you have any questions related to low carb. Sweet.
Yeah.
I think it was a pretty straightforward case study. I don't think there are much questions.
Yeah, people can just put it on in the chat box also. So
Yeah, you can type in if you have anything. Just wait for a few seconds.
I have a question, Harshil.
Sure.
So what I understood from your teaching is exactly sugar has the equal importance of rising the blood pressure in proportion to salt. That means, can we consider it as a 50-50 ratio? Usually people think that the cause of high blood pressure relates to high consumption of salt. So, as you rightly said, sugar has a prominent role in increasing the BP.
Right.
Yes. So, can we consider it a 50-50? That means
I think it will be sugar will be more than 50%, sir. And also more than 50%. I think it will have a 65-70% role in your hypertension rather than your salt intake. So if you balance your sugar intake, your body takes care of the sodium balance, and and that because the sodium retention goes away, and that leads to a better balance of your hypertension. But also as with the caveat that sometimes what happens is that your blood pressure is systolic and diastolic. Diastolic pressure, so systolic is primary hypertension, which is the higher one. The lower one is the diastolic, which is called secondary hypertension. It can be because of secondary causes. So there might be other causes. So when we are talking of hypertension, we are in normal balance of primary hypertension. So primary hypertension is generally related to sugar or excess carbohydrate intake or insulin resistance. That's the evidence that we've seen.
So you mean to say that more weightage goes to sugar, not salt?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Also, Harshil, there's one more question from Priya Singh. She asked, do all your clients show such a dramatic results in such a short span of time, or?
Yeah. So most of the clients who follow what we say, and they approach it in the lifestyle, get these dramatic results. And with those who are severe cases like the one that you saw, especially with the PPBS of 323 and fasting of 207, these cases generally see a dramatic improvement. So I would say 95% of them see a dramatic improvement in few days.
Okay. Great. Also, there's one more question. Muralidharan, he's asking, taking dark chocolate occasionally, is it okay or not?
Yeah, I think taking dark chocolate occasionally is okay, but it also depends on what's the composition of the chocolate and the sugar and the other ingredients which go into it. Ideally, avoid white sugar-based chocolates. You have other healthier options which are there in the market, which would be more like a ketogenic chocolates, etc. So they would be more healthy. Or maybe you can choose to have a dark chocolate or a chocolate cocoa powder, adding to a unflavored whey protein, and just make it like a chocolate milkshake and have that. That also is okay.
Also, I think in case of dark chocolate, the source also matters, because otherwise, if it's contaminated with a lot of heavy metals, then it can cause problem. So
Yeah, that's why it's very important to watch the ingredients and where does it come from.
Yeah. Any other question? Please unmute and ask.
So maybe we can take the questions off record also. So if anyone has any queries, they can write into me. My email is harshil@thenutritionlab.in, and we're happy to take queries, or reach out to any of the D-Life members, and we will always be happy to help you guys.
Any final words, Harshil, before we close the session?
I think we have one question. Let's answer that and let's close it.
Yeah. So, hypertension and having thyroid issues, how important is it for them to take salt intake?
That's a very subjective question. It's very important to also analyze your other blood markers, to see as to what's happening. So with hypertension, if you're following a low carb approach, when you start doing it with a practitioner like me or anyone in the D-Life community or any other nutritionist, they will try and balance the salt intake basis what you are having or basis the diet that has been given to you. So I might not be able to answer it that how much salt intake or how important is it. Of course, it is important to have salt intake because salt also is closely linked to insulin sensitivity. If you have lesser salt in your diet, your sensitivity of insulin. When I'm saying sensitivity of insulin, it's meaning that if your insulin is 1 point in the blood, and if it's being able to reduce your blood sugar by 10 points, this is just a hypothetical example. And let's say if you become lesser sensitive, that same 1 point of insulin will be able to reduce your blood sugar only by 7, 8 points or 6 points. So to maintain the insulin sensitivity, you need to also have salt. So salt is closely linked with insulin sensitivity. That's why people on low carb diets generally advise to have salt. And salt is also very good because salt, like we say that, electrolytes means that the energy which is formed in the body, is made generally through electrolytes. So they act as a cofactor in all the processes for making ATP in your body. ATP is the end energy source, and electrolytes are Na, which is sodium, Cl chloride, K is potassium, Mg is magnesium. So sodium chloride, which is salt, that is why it is also very important that have salt. Again, there are various kinds of salt, and which one to have, which not to have, is a separate topic. But it will have to be devised basis the diet that you take and how you are having. And generally, when you're following a low carb diet, you need to consume a little bit more salt.
Yeah. So I would suggest, Nasiba, Raju, you can also, because this required more analysis of your reports in detail, you can post on forum your existing reports and the current consumption of your diet. And Harshil and many other experts on the D-Life forum can help you with more detailed approach how to tackle this.
So, Keyuri, thanks. So, just on an end note, I would want to say that, metabolic fitness is very important for everyone. And, metabolic fitness ensures that you are disease-free from many of the modern diseases that you are seeing. So, you would be like a 90% disease-free person. So, 90% of the disease just go away. So, it's important. So, try and follow a healthier lifestyle. Incorporate nutrition as a part of lifestyle rather than as a diet, and adopt the low carb LCHF approach. Learn more about it. There are various courses for it, or you can also approach any of a nutritionist and learn for it. But most of the metabolic diseases can be put into remission, can be partly reversed. So just follow the right things and you'll be able to go through it.
Yeah, thanks, Harshil. That's a great ending note. I think it will solve most of the people's problems.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think we are good that we can close
Yeah.
this session.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Harshil, for
Thank you. Yeah.